What is going on, guys? It's the Mag Dragon. We're back doing another preview video for the World Cup warm-ups, the final one that I'm going to be doing on the channel. There are some other games going on. This one is going to be for France versus Australia, a very exciting game going on this weekend. We do also have going on alongside this is also Spain versus Argentina and Ireland versus Samoa, but I'm probably not going to have time to be able to sit down and make those videos before the games are going to be kicking off. If you want to get involved with the Super Brew as well, first game is on tonight, which is the New Zealand-South Africa game, so you've got a very limited amount of time between probably finishing watching this video and getting your Super Brew done. So just a bit of a heads up for everyone. This will be the last one that I'll be doing. It'll be the last one before the actual World Cup. We have done a bunch of the other ones for this weekend. They're all up on the channel. You can go check those ones out after this one if you haven't already. Of course, in the preview videos where we check out the official teams that have been announced for both sides, have a run through, give some thoughts on the teams, some thoughts on how we think the game might be played, a few fun stats and facts and stuff along the way, and finally, of course, giving a score prediction. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that like button. It really does help the small channels on YouTube out, as does hitting that subscribe button. It's free, it's easy, and keeps you up to date with all of the latest videos, especially as we're going through the World Cup, because there's probably going to be a lot of videos coming out over the next few weeks. France versus Australia then. Two teams coming into this game at completely different stages. France have come in off the back of some really solid performances. They've got a really solid A team. They've got a really solid B team. They're testing out youngsters that are also getting into the international scene and smashing the game. Whereas Australia have lost every single game since Eddie Jones has taken over. They didn't win a single game in the Rugby Championship. They lost Bledisloe 2 after having an immensely good first half. Eddie Jones has announced his World Cup squad. It's kind of mind-boggling. They're taking one fly half with them. Loads of big names missed out, like Michael Hooper and Quade Cooper. Yeah, there's a lot of things going on with Australia. They are really going into this World Cup as some sort of big wild card. So I'm kind of looking forward to see how they get on. But going to be a tough old game going up against France, seeing as some of the other teams they've played, and they haven't played since that Bledisloe 2 match. So Australia have got a lot to deal with before they get around to that World Cup starting in just a couple of weeks. Starting with the French team then. France have put out, I mean, is this arguably the best French team? I mean, there's maybe a couple of switches you would make, but this is about it, right? It doesn't get that much better. Maybe just looking at it very quickly, we will, of course, run through the team fully. Maybe, of course, you'd want to put in, like, Romain Ntamack as opposed to Jalibert if he was fit, which, unfortunately, he won't be for this World Cup. Maybe some people would want some swaps to Gabin Villiers, but we saw him play against Scotland a couple of weekends ago, and he was doing pretty well. And Cyril Bay also missing out, but I think he's also got his own injury concerns as well. But we'll have a run through the team, but this is a stacked looking French team on the face of it. So in the front row, Jean-Baptiste Gros goes in alongside of Julien Marchand, and Antonio takes over that tight head position this weekend. Now, they went up against Fiji last week. They looked pretty good in terms of the forwards game last week. Fiji, I would probably still, I don't even know. I was going to say, rank lower than Australia, but at the minute, performance-wise, Fiji are, coming here to take names. They're playing a really aggressive game. Australia not having any wins along the way. Maybe they're actually closer than you'd expect them to be. They're certainly kind of close on the world rankings. But I imagine Australia will give them a tougher time in terms of the scrummaging and the mauls in this one. But this is still a fantastic, solid front row for France to bring in. In the lock department then, Thibaut Flamand goes in alongside of Paul Valemsa. Now, from seeing Thibaut Flamand play in the Six Nations and how impressive he was, for me, I would be starting him over Cameron Vogel when I'm thinking about, a full starting French team. So I'm glad to see this pairing put back together for this game. I think this is probably the best lock department France have at the minute. So I think they're going to be really, really looking to dominate in that line-out position. In the back row, Francois Cros goes in the blindside flanker. Charles Olivon returns to open side, and Gregory Aldrit retains in that 8 shirt. Probably one of the only French players that has actually been in all of these warm-up games. He's retaining that number 8 shirt. He's a vital player to have in the team. He's managed to get away with no injuries so far, even against Fiji, who'll come at you aggressively hard off the line, and they certainly had the medics on last week, putting out some of the free spray on people. But nice to see Charles Olivon back in. Of course, we got to see him against Scotland, having that fantastic run-in try from distance that we all know he's capable of. Really nice to see him. Of course, not captaincy for this one, has done captaincy before, because Antoine Dupont goes back in at scrum half this weekend compared to last weekend, alongside of Matteo Jalibert this week, because, of course, Ntamack out and out with that injury. He's gone. Hastoy played last week, and was perfectly fine. He had an okay game. I don't think it has quite the same spark as when you have Romain Ntamack there. I think he brings a totally different world to it. Mathieu Jalibert getting his stab at this one now in that 10 shirt. They're really looking to see who's going to be that starting fly half for them. I imagine Jalibert's looking more in to be the starting fly half, especially with their first game being against New Zealand in just a couple of weeks for that Pool A. In the centre partnership, Jonathan Darnty goes in alongside Gaël Fickou. This is the centre partnership. I'm expecting to see much more as we go on through the World Cup. I think, again, this is probably the best partnership for me. They've tried it out. They put Arthur Vincent in last week, and they tried Mofana in that centre as well. For me, I prefer Darnty and Gaël Fickou. I think it gives you two totally different styles of play. Very, very defensively aware. Jonathan Darnty last week against Fiji, just every ruck he went into was break it down, ripping that ball out of people's hands or winning a jackal penalty. An absolute nightmare defensively. And they used Gaël Fickou as the defensive captain, right? So you've got two massive defenders in there, but you've got Jonathan Darnty to run at your full speed, hard man to stop when he's carrying the ball. And Gaël Fickou, such a talented player getting around them. Two different players, but brings such a fantastic defensive element to the side. I think it's a really nice move. And then finally in the back three, Gabin Villiers goes in on the left wing, Damien Penaud on the right wing, and Thomas Ramos goes in that fullback shirt. And our wingers, we're still up for a bit of contention of who people would pick as their first choice. Damien Penaud would absolutely be a first choice, I think, for many teams. So I think you'd have to take that right wing. Villiers hasn't had a great amount of game time. I thought he played very well against that Scotland team a few weeks ago. Maybe some people would want to see some other names in there that have had a bit more game time recently, especially through the Six Nations. Biel Bieri was playing extremely well for a young lad on low caps as well. Maybe he could be getting a look in, but Villiers, very, very slippery person to get through. And Jaminet last week as well. The kicking game, man, they've got such great depth in the fullback shirt. For me, Ramos would start. I would always be starting Ramos, but I think if Melvin Jaminet was in a different team, you'd probably be starting him more weeks than not in that fullback shirt. I also think he's a superb player. So 1 through 15, a solid looking French team. Australia are really going to have to watch out for this. The host nation of France for this World Cup, of course, they want to get this game right under their belts. Solid win. Get yourselves in the momentum for that World Cup going up against New Zealand. And then quickly in terms of the replacements then, we have Malvaka, Taufai-Fanua and Aldegheri in that replacement front row. We have another Taufai-Fanua, Romain Taufai-Fanua now in that replacement lock department alongside of Cameron Vokey and Boudehon going in there as well. So they've gone for the 6-2 split this week. Australia, even though when you think of Australia, I tend to think of them going through the forwards a lot more. Eddie Jones's Australia hasn't really done that. They've got individual forwards that are shining bright and doing great things, but they are using the backs a lot more. They're trying to score tries. Corio Betty's been doing well for Australia through that rugby championship and trying to spread it out wider quicker. Maybe the 6-2 is actually not so much about countering Australia as opposed to bringing your own offensive. Maybe France are also considering those big injuries, having lost Ntamack. They're thinking, we don't want to lose too many big other names, so go for the 6-2. Gives you more longevity in terms of your forwards. You can go for a few more driving maul tries if you want to as well. Maybe this game will come down a little bit more to taking those 3 points, take those driving maul tries, and if the opportunity opens up to unleash the backs, why not? Go for a running try there. But maybe they're thinking better to be safe than sorry. Just load up on your forwards and do the physical game plan. And then finally in the replacement backs, Kouriou goes in alongside of Melvin Jaminet. So I assume Jaminet or Ramos would move into 10 if Jalibert had to come off. I'm actually not too sure if either of them have ever done, full-time fly half before. But the way that France use their players in terms of just open play, sometimes they slot in anyway to do those positions. So I'm sure they'd be up for that task, because I imagine Jalibert is one of the people in this team they're going to be keeping a really close eye on. Any sort of knock in this game, they're just going to want to take him off, make sure he's fine just to get through to that World Cup. But a really solid looking French team, and Australia could be in for a bit of a rough day. Now, I had a look at the Australian team. I saw a post saying the Australia announced for this weekend, and this is the post that I saw, and I thought Eddie Jones has gone wild here. This is an incredible Australia team to put out, given what we saw for the World Cup team announcements. Turns out this isn't the Australia team. There is another game going on this weekend that I had no idea that was going on. Portugal versus Australia A. I didn't know that game was going on at all till I saw this team announcement, and I thought a couple of people watching this may also not know that, so you can have a look for that one as well. I believe it's not being televised anywhere, that game, though. Real shame to not be able to see a bit more from Portugal before we get to the World Cup, but if you're interested in that game, there's the Australia team for you. But the team that we're more interested in for this video, the one going up against France, there's some big calls here, because of course they named that World Cup squad. There was a lot of big people missing from that. They named debutants in the World Cup who are yet to play, and 2 of them have been named in this team. So, you know, they're trying to get those debuts in before the World Cup. Imagine making your debut at the World Cup. That would be something really quite special to see. In the front row then, Angus Bell, David Parecki and Taniela Tupou going in that tight head position. The last time I saw Taniela Tupou, he'd picked up a bit of an injury, so nice to know he's come back from that. Angus Bell is one of the players that is performing quite well for Australia. He's having some fantastic games. James Slipper keeps getting this look in this team, and I have to say Angus Bell has been a better performer for me rather than James Slipper, even though he's a much more experienced player, much higher caps and done the captaincy as well. Angus Bell has a real drive about him, so I'm glad to see he's still in there. In the lock department, Richie Arnold goes in alongside Will Skelton, named as captain. Again, this was one of the things that came from the from that World Cup announcement, that Will Skelton was going in as captain, even though I think they've had more experienced captains, but we'll have to see how Will Skelton gets on in this game. In the back row, Tom Hooper, Fraser McWright and Rob Valentini taking over in that 8 shirt. Now this is back row we saw sort of interchanged a little bit throughout the Rugby Championship when they were testing their flankers and stuff. Rob Valentini's probably going to be starting number 8 throughout the World Cup, right? With Michael Hooper gone, Fraser McWright might even be your starting open side for most of the games. And Tom Hooper, after having his an awkward debut, should we say, only playing 30 minutes and getting pulled off, definitely came out in that Bledisloe 2 game, smashing his way through some All Blacks players and really trying to make the most of his opportunity to get back into this team. So looking forward to see if he can make that a little bit more consistent in his performances. In the halfback partnership, Tate McDermott goes in alongside of Carter Gordon. So no Nick White isn't even named on the bench, and of course Carter Gordon, the only fly half that's directly named in that World Cup team. So again, this game going to be a bit of a battle of the bubble-wrapped fly halves, I think. Both Australia and France got a few fly half concerns going into this World Cup, so, they'll have to keep him under wraps. Carter Gordon's been one of the interesting players, actually, having not known anything about him going into the Rugby Championship. He got his debut try after coming on in 1 minute remaining of the game in his debut. He had to come on in the next game at the outside centre because they had an injury. And I thought he had a great game at centre, and then we got to see him for a couple of games going in there as well at the fly half shirt, and he's been okay at fly half. I'm yet to see him really land the fly half shirt. I've obviously not quite seen the spark that Eddie Jones has seen, but saying that, Quade Cooper, having seen how well he was playing in the Barbarians versus World 15 game compared to how he was playing for Australia, I actually sort of agree that I think I would probably be picking Carter Gordon over him, to be honest. In the centre partnership, Foketi goes in alongside of Jordan Pataya, who had his own little bouts of issues, I think, throughout the Rugby Championship, defensively mainly for Jordan Pataya. He's very good with going with the ball in hand. But defensively, Jordan Pataya was maybe a bit of a chink in the arm, and no Len Ikitau, obviously with his injury, and someone that is, pretty solid in defence being replaced by Jordan Pataya might be an area that France look to exploit, especially with someone like Jonathan Darcy running down. Jordan Pataya is going to have a long old day. And then finally, in the back three, Vunivalu goes back in the left wing after having, I think, maybe the worst debut I've ever seen in international rugby, one that I can remember anyway. Marky Mark, as I heard his name being said now by the commentary team on the right wing, and finally Andrew Kellaway in that fullback position. But yeah, Vunivalu, that game against the Springboks, came on, did nothing, was a bigger issue for the team more than anything, dropping the ball, missing tackles. I had him in the fantasy, expecting some big things from him. Got yellow carded. I can't even remember if his yellow card led to a penalty try as well. A really, really poor debut, and we'll be looking to make a big, big improvement for this game. I was very surprised to still see his name still staying in for that World Cup team sheet. So we'll have to see how he gets on in this one. But from having seen that Springboks game, I think, again, another target player for France here to try and get in over and dominate there. On the bench then for this team, a lot of new names for me, to be honest, along the way here. So apologies for any mispronunciations. If you're an Australian fan, a better phonetic spelling for someone like me, drop it down in the comment section because I do enjoy them. Fassler Shoop and Nongor will be coming on in that front row at some point. Alongside them, we have Matt Phillip, Rob Leota, and Langy Gleeson will be the replacement forwards there. So they've also gone for their 6-2 split. Again, injury concerns might be a thing for them. Maybe they believe in their own power game. France at the minute, though, defensively have looked very, very good in terms of driving mauls and scrums and defending their own try line. The few tries that Australia did score, a couple of them came from just the pick and goes, so maybe having the replacement forwards gives them that ability to just get over towards that 5 meter line and just sort of try and pick off a try here or there. Maybe that's what they're thinking for this one. And then in the replacement backs, we have Finez Leliwasa. Hopefully I'm sort of going to get that pronunciation correct. Now, Leliwasa is a player I didn't know anything about. I've quickly gone and looked him up. Slightly older than I expected him to be for making his debut. He's 27 years old. He was playing over at the Brumbies, and then he went over to Western Force over in 2022 and has an incredible haircut. So I'll be keeping an eye out for him. You won't miss him. Believe me, when you get to see him on the pitch, he's got some incredible hair. And then, of course, Ben Donaldson. He has played a couple of games with Australia before, but he's still quite low on caps. He only had 2, as I'm aware, for Australia. He's had 2 for Australia A and 4 for Australia under-20s as well. So a couple of facts for you there. Overall, it's an okay Australia team. I still wouldn't even put this at, the top tier of Australia, and yet I feel like this is probably one of the teams you could be seeing this in the World Cup. You could be seeing this going up against Wales or Fiji, or probably an almost identical team. Maybe you'd have Corey Betty on the wing, as opposed to Vunivalu there. I still feel I would have Nick White starting over Tate McDermott. I might keep the front row the same, actually. That bench, though, I really feel like the longevity of this game, I think the longer this goes on, I think the better opportunity France have to really take this one by some decent points. So, in terms of a score prediction, then, what do we think? This one, for me, is a France win. That France team looks pretty monstrous, and they're playing at home. They've come off the back of a good win against Fiji and against Scotland. Going into the World Cup, full momentum behind them. It's their own World Cup. They're going up against New Zealand for that opening game. They need this win here to really cement that we're going to go into that one feeling extremely confident. For me, I'm going to say a France win, and I've got a feeling they might do quite well in this one. I'm going to say France by 14. That is going to be my prediction, guys. But of course, make sure you drop down in the comment section your thoughts on the teams along with your own score predictions, because I really enjoy having a read through them. Make sure you get your picks up on Super Brew. Like I said, the first game kicking off this evening is South Africa and New Zealand. So make sure you're getting all your scores locked in for that. I think it might be okay to do them day by day, but just to be better safe than sorry. Unfortunately, I don't get to watch the New Zealand-South Africa game either. Didn't realise Sky have that one as opposed to Amazon over here in the UK, so I can't actually watch that game, which sucks. So I'm going to have to go and watch some highlights and stuff after that game is over. But hopefully you've enjoyed this one today, guys. Of course, we're going to be doing a video on Monday, taking a look at everyone's Super results and see what shifted up in those world rankings as well. And if I have time over the weekend, I might try and squeeze in a couple of review videos, depending on what games I'm catching, and can actually sit down and do a review on. They do take quite a lot of time. So make sure you keep your eyes peeled on the channel for all the upcoming videos. I'll see you all next time, guys. Bye bye.